Hello.
Mr. Pickerill.
Yeah.
This is John Pickerill. My name is Jonathan Masters. How are you doing?
Hi, good. How can I help you?
I have so many questions I want to ask about policy, so I don't know if this is a good time or if you want me to talk a different time, but is it okay to ask you
No,
some?
I'm just sitting on my back porch and enjoying the sunset, so you caught me at a good time.
Perfect. Okay, well, can you say something about your background? I read here that you hold a degree in physics from Purdue University. You're a retired Navy nuclear submarine officer, an Iraq War veteran. You and your wife and children live in Pueblo West, and you work as an engineer. Is that all right?
Yeah. Are you in Pueblo County?
I'm in Pueblo City, so living in downtown right now. You're a libertarian, and when I look at Pueblo West, I guess it's just a sales tax, but it kind of looks to me like it's a libertarian's wet dream. Is that too far?
In what way?
Well,
as far as
there's no sales tax, and the metropolitan district is always complaining that they don't have enough revenue. It's like, we don't have as much revenue as the city, so we have to do with the budget. But that's from
I'm in no hurry for any new tax. Anytime, well, it's nice out in Pueblo West because, the tax is what, 3.5% lower here? The sales tax is 3.5% lower?
Yeah, there's absolutely no sales tax for the city itself. They just collect it for the state and the county.
Yeah, so if we shop, we go to Walmart out here. We don't go to Walmart in town. If we, we vote for it with our dollar. Yeah, I will not be voting for, if I was elected, I would not be voting for any new tax, period.
Okay, so that's what I was wondering actually about Pueblo West. I know there's no sales tax, but then I think there's property taxes, right? So that's still a hit.
Yeah, we still got our property taxes. And of course, income tax and tax on your cell phone and tax on when you get your driver's license. And
taxing.
It's not a tax, they'll call it a fee to get around Tybor.
I was looking at some of the land use laws. I noticed that one of your planks was critical of zoning. I called Castillo County. I'm not sure exactly the Pueblo thing, but they were saying that for every little thing that you wanted to do, road access permit was $200. Even if you had road access, you still had to get the permit, and then small construction permit. And it looks like if you just want to build yourself a tiny little shack on a tiny little piece of ground, it would take $1,000 worth of fees. And I don't know. I guess I'm not totally discouraged, but it does feel like it's a barrier to entry to develop yourself.
Yeah. It's I just built on the house a little bit, and the contractor took care of the permitting, and I need to ask him how much he ended up having to pay for it. I'd just be curious, and it just seems a little crazy. Do you own your property or don't you? That's always the question I have, because in my mind, if you own your property, that means you have the ultimate say over your property, and you shouldn't have to pay rent for your property, even if it's in the form of tax. If somebody wants to provide a service and I can voluntarily choose whether I pay for it, then I'm perfectly fine with that. But I don't like the idea that if I did not pay my taxes, somebody could come along and confiscate my property.
Yeah, with the tax lien certificates.
Yeah, and I don't know. I've only been out in Pueblo for a short time. We recently relocated from Indiana, and I know out there, tax liens turn into sheriff sales, and if you don't pay your taxes, it can be confiscated. Your property can be confiscated and then sold off in a sheriff sale. I don't know how often that actually happens.
It happens yearly. Every year. Every year they do it. 61 properties that went up for sale last year, and I think it's they have one every year in October.
Yeah. So that's a little bit scary. I mean, that's not exactly freedom in the extent that I want it anyway.
I was looking at the laws to it, and I agree with you, but I guess there should be some mechanism too if you don't pay your stuff. So there's no nepotism, so I don't know how clean they run it, but they said that no county official or employee can buy any of those properties. So it by law it looks like it should be pretty clean, but I guess the proof is in the pudding. Let's switch gears here. I wanted to you're running against Leroy Garcia, the state senator of Pueblo for the last 4 years. He's Democrat. He actually just got elected into the leadership, so he's in the leadership of the minority party. And and so I guess, do you know what his position is on the war on drugs, and what's your position on the war on drugs?
I haven't seen him. I usually try to track what is put in the chieftain about him. And from what I understand, he is for building the new jail, which tells me that he doesn't quite understand the cause and effect of the war on drugs. My position is, let's take heroin addiction. We've had laws that outlaw heroin use for 50 years now.
Yeah.
And heroin use has only gone up. So I think anybody can tell you that the laws don't work. In fact, they've always been more strict and more strict and more strict. With mandatory minimum sentencing, and that has not discouraged things. I mean, we're almost at epidemic levels right now for heroin deaths and overdose. There's less deaths now that you have, what is the drug that the first responders are carrying now?
Fentanyl?
But, what's that?
Is it fentanyl? Is that the same stuff? They just killed that guy?
Fentanyl is what's making heroin more potent. It starts with Narcan, I think. Narcan, I think is what it's called.
Yeah, that's it.
But that's just masking the problem. And so I did some research, and one, the problems that we're seeing now are very similar to Prohibition in the 30s, where you have people that you have a crime syndicate that arises because you made it illegal. You have it, and the stronger you make the laws, it really doesn't stop usage and the problems associated with addiction. And you have people pushing for more potent, more deadly forms of what you're trying to outlaw. In the 30s, it was people were going more toward liquor instead of beer because it was easier to bootleg.
Right.
And then you had a lot more drinking deaths because of that. And now you're seeing the same thing with drugs. And so I say to myself, well, maybe we need to take a new approach. Maybe instead of throwing everybody in jail and basically putting a label on them where they cannot ever find a job again because now all of a sudden they're a convict. Something like 25% of people in jail and prisons right now, the only reason they're in there is for a nonviolent drug charge, meaning they didn't steal anything, didn't try to break into anybody's house, didn't try to take anybody's money. The only thing they did is they put a drug into their body. The only reason that we're paying $20,000 a year to house, feed, and clothe them in a jail. So my approach would be to decriminalize and use the money that you would be spending on jail to instead use on treatment. And my preferred method would be through private charity instead of government mandated or funded, say, in-house drug addiction facilities. But as a first step, I'd be willing to say transfer the money that you would be using to buy a new jail to house all these drug addicts, and instead put them into treatment centers. I've had sheriffs that tell me that, jail is not a very good place to treat addiction.
It's not a great place to treat anything, really, by the way that they do it. And I guess there might be some argument that if they're just lost and they're gone and they're too far, maybe throwing them in jail dries them out. But I feel like I guess fascist violence is the last option.
Yeah, exactly.
It should be the last option, not and we here in our society, I think it's the first option. It's like, have we tried to even, pull them up out of their, situation. And
have you ever researched what Portugal did about 10 years ago?
Yeah, I'm familiar with Portugal.
Okay.
And Switzerland, too.
They decriminalized everything, every single drug 10
Right.
years ago. At that time, they were so desperate they were willing to try anything. They were the worst in all of Europe, or second worst, top two anyway, and for heroin deaths.
Yeah.
People were literally dying in the streets every day.
It was.
So they said, we got to do something. So they decriminalized everything, and they really concentrated on treatment programs and things like that. And now today, they are the second best in Europe for avoiding heroin overdoses.
Yeah.
So it works.
Yeah.
I know it's a lot of people say, "Oh, that's a crazy idea," but the thing is, we tried the other way for 50 years.
Yeah.
So who's crazy?
Yeah, exactly. If we got rid of the drugs, in terms of who's winning, I think the drugs are kicking our ass. And another thing...
yeah, exactly. I saw a great meme on Facebook the other day. It was a Benny Hill picture. He said, "Sir, report from the war on drugs. Drugs are winning."
Yeah, they are. And actually, I guess...
It's just classic. It sums it up pretty nicely, if you ask me.
Well, if you look at some of the heroin addicts, they're pretty much a mess, and they're winning. They're and then also you mentioned the 1930s prohibition. What about just being an American? When did we lose a right to our own body? If I was drinking bleach, I guess, I don't know.
Exactly.
Let me actually, if I was drinking alcohol, that's legal, right? And my vice is marijuana. I tried some things, but I guess my end vice, my beer at the end of the night is marijuana. I don't even like drinking beer. But if I'm drinking beer and somebody comes over and they bash me over the head and they throw me into a pen and they say, "You're going to get better," and then they put me into the judicial branch that, ruins my reputation, and that you're not helping me. That does not help at all. If anything, you're the criminal. You're the asshole, because like you were saying, they're victimless crimes, unless you want to say, you're hurting yourself. But even then, as an American, I'm allowed to hurt myself. This is my body.
You're allowed to. It's up to you. I may not agree with some of these decisions. I may even find them repugnant. Yeah. But the thing is, if you're going to believe in freedom, if you're really going to say that this is America, the free, well, you got to understand what freedom means. Freedom means you look at the other guy over there, even if he's making what you think are stupid decisions. That's none of your damn business.
Right. Well,
it's up to him. As long as he's not hurting anybody else, he gets to do whatever he wants to do.
I agree. Even Alex Jones, I'm not a huge fan of Alex Jones. I feel like he's just kind of off in the fringe, just kind of yelling like a crazy person. This is wrong, that's wrong. But I think in terms of groupthink, you might need a guy like that. And also in terms of freedom, when it comes to freedom of speech, we might have to sift through the nonsense versus the stuff that actually makes sense. So I think that's just a part of the deal. It's just I would defend his right to freely speak, even though I disagree with the things that he's saying, because I believe in the free speech on principle.
Yeah, exactly. Do you believe in it? If you believe in free speech, or don't you? Well, if you do, that means other people are allowed to say things that you may not like.
So that means because I believe in a right to my body, I believe everybody else has a right to their body too. And if somebody was harming their body, I would feel like if I got a neighbor that's just doing a bunch of heroin, I would feel sorry for them. And if they're not hurting anybody, then I'm not worried that they're going to do any criminality. But if anything, I feel sorry for them. Maybe there's something in their life, they're sad. But if that's their that's their right. If they want to do it that way, but I guess beating them up and fascist state violence, that's not it. That's not the...
It's not going to solve the problem, yeah. It's not going to solve anything.
Yeah.
If anything, it just makes it worse.
Right. Okay, cool. You had mentioned on Elect John Pickerill Facebook page, Austrian school economists have been warning about the stock market correction for years. Peter Schiff, Ron Paul, to name a few. Those two individuals also predicted the 2008 crash several years before it happened. Maybe we should listen to them. What stock market correction are you expecting to happen? When will it happen? What's this all about?
Well, of course, no one knows, but, love Trump or hate him, the tax cuts were great, but if you don't have spending cuts at the same time, then you're going bankrupt, and if you are trying to prop up the government spending with the Federal Reserve is printing money, that's only going to last for so long. All that does is breed inflation. It encourages businesses to get into things that normally they wouldn't get into in the free market. They would be wise enough to say, that's I don't have the money to do that. Well, when the Federal Reserve prints money and they put it into the banking system, and all of a sudden credit's really easy to get, now businesses are like, well, yeah, sure, we can get into that. It's a 0% interest. We can get into a lot of things normally we wouldn't get into. So they make a lot of stupid decisions.
Right.
Like investing into flipping houses, and if you look at 2008, the housing bubble, and lending to people normally they wouldn't lend to. They're taking risks that they wouldn't take, but they know that they're going to get bailed out by the government.
Right.
So who gets left hold the bag? The people that go underwater on their mortgages, and the people who their retirement fund has a bunch of mortgage-backed securities that now are bankrupt, and so now their retirement's gone. Meanwhile, the bankers get a bailout. Fannie and Freddie, who are responsible for this whole thing, they get bailed out. People responsible for this mess, they don't suffer any consequences. But the economy tanks, and you got a lot of people that are out of work because, when the housing market goes bad, and they're laying off people, when people made investment in mortgage-backed securities that might have been businesses. So now those businesses, if they were barely hanging on, they're gone out of business. Now people lost their jobs. It's just this avalanche effect. So, are you familiar with Austrian School of Economics?
No. Is that actually a specific school?
Well, it's a school of thought, is what it is.
Oh, yeah.
If you've ever heard of Milton Friedman, he's Chicago School of Economics.
Okay.
And it's a branch of free market economics. Austrian School is a free market.
I think there's a Frankfurt school too, in Germany.
Which one?
I don't know. I'm just thinking. This is deep in my memory well bank, but I was thinking there's a Frankfurt school of thought with economics.
Okay.
I don't know.
But what Austrian school is basically the fact that people have a right to get into voluntary transactions. If two people want to trade anything they want, whether they're two Americans, whether they're American or Chinaman or anyone else in the world, the government doesn't have any right to interfere with that, as long as they're not hurting anybody or defrauding anybody. Period.
Right.
And the idea that when government starts interfering, then people will react to that, and they'll do what they need to avoid taxes, avoid extra expense, because they're out to improve their own conditions. Two people trade because, if I got a bike I want to sell on Craigslist, and somebody offers me $100, well, I'll either take the $100 because I think $100 is worth a little bit more than what the bike's worth to me. And the person that buys the bike, for them, the bike's in their individual world, that bike is worth more to them slightly than the $100 they're willing to give up. And so the free market really just comes down to that times a billion or trillion times, transactions all over the world. And if government just stepped out, well, the more people can just interact with each other, buy and sell what they want, to make their own lives better, well, historically, that's what's lifted more people out of poverty than socialism ever will, or government intervention and cronyism ever will.
Yeah,
so that's kind of Australian thought in a nutshell.
Oh, okay. Milton, what do you agree? Milton Friedman, do you agree with Milton Friedman?
Almost everything. There's a few things that he would say it's okay that I don't like. He's kind of sort of okay with protectionist tariffs. I am not. This trade war that Trump's got us in, I think is a disaster.
Yeah, it's actually crazy that Republicans are the ones pushing for tariffs when traditionally I would think that's like a Democratic sort of, like you said, protectionism is more Democratic idea. So if Obama was doing the tariffs, the Republicans would be going crazy, but because it's Donald, they're not saying a word. I don't hear a peep.
I know. It doesn't just drive me crazy. It just, and they don't even see their own hypocrisy.
No, there's actually, God, there's a lot of, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I'm willing to give Bill Donald credit for the things he does well, like the tax cut. Hey, that was great. The fact he's taken on some of the foreign policy stupidity that's going on. Like he wanted to get out of Syria. Hey, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's better. He's to the... Yeah, Hillary would have already got us into nuclear war by now. TPP, too, I would throw that in there. He killed the TPP.
Yeah. But then he does, and he's willing to engage Russia, which I think is, I don't have a problem with that.
I don't have a problem with that, too, but he's also bombing the crap out of Russia in Syria. He's escalating NATO tensions on the border there. So he's actually kind of giving Russia... he's standing up to him, too, so I feel like he's kind of playing that dual role pretty well. And I don't buy into that Russia narrative at all either, too.
I don't either.
Yeah.
No, I think you have a lot of neocons that are anxious to keep us in a war. I haven't spoken a whole lot about foreign policy because obviously I'm not running for a federal position. But
neoliberals, too.
Yeah, as far as my foreign policy goes, it would be... Hey, I don't see a declaration of war we have in place, so I'd basically be bringing everybody home as soon as ships can get there. And if they want to go to the people and actually, have a declaration of war, then as long as it's a just war, personally I think it's stupid, but if it's a defensive war against an invasion, for instance, okay, that's something I can understand. But to have our troops stationed all over the world and have be some kind of empire.
What about
and spending almost $1 trillion a year doing that? I think that's not wise. I've seen a lot of my fellow servicemen come back mentally broken. A lot of them come back missing limbs, and I'm tired of our politicians doing that to them.
What about the constitutional argument, too? Congress is supposed to declare the wars, and we haven't declared, Congress hasn't declared a war since World War II. Yeah,
exactly.
So
everywhere we're at today is basically unconstitutional.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and that's, I'm more of a green, so left libertarian than right libertarian. But it's crazy how, I don't know, here in Pueblo, there's no opposition party. So it's crazy how what traditionally would be the far left and the far right, how many things we agree on. We agree on the war should end. We agree that the war on drugs is ridiculous. What about police power? You'd mentioned something about there was a police officer who had shot somebody, and you said that they should be charged as a private citizen would be charged. I agree with that, too. So I feel like there's, across the board, there's just so many major... It kind of shows how messed up the system is, or the two parties are, because if we're able to agree... I feel like I really want to look at this race very closely because, I want to... I wish... Here's something that gets under my skin about Democrats. They don't have principles when it comes to the war on drugs. They would say that you have a right to your own body, and it was Nixon that started it. But for some reason, it seems like it's just, when it comes to libertarians, like what you were saying, like even though Michael Stapleton, he's running for the regent position, but even though, you might not have that position to do something about the war, do something about the war on drugs, I like that you're a principled person. I like that there's just some lines that you're just not going to cross, that, just...
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are hungry for that because they just get so disgusted every day. I think they see through it, and they're thirsty for somebody who's actually going to stick to principles and say things. Even if they know everyone in the room is going to disagree with them, they're going to say it because they really truly believe it.
I got like 6 planks here to your platform. Can I just say them, and then you say if you agree with it or disagree with it, and then I want to expand on one last thing at the very end.
Yeah, you bet.
So you said to affirm the General Assembly's authority to judge the constitutionality of federal acts. So if the General Assembly of Colorado determined that a federal law such as Obamacare or a firearms restriction was unconstitutional, the General Assembly should declare the act null and void and unenforceable in Colorado.
Exactly.
You also believe in to affirm the General Assembly's authority to control the collection of federal taxes. The General Assembly can protect Colorado taxpayers from being forced to fund unconstitutional federal acts.
Yeah, because otherwise, how do you do it? If you talk to, like, say, I've tried to persuade state legislators in the past. Hey, listen, why don't you guys just stand up and say, this isn't a federal power, we're not going to follow it. And they say, oh, we'd love to. But the problem is they withhold our federal education money or our federal highway money if we do that. Well, if that's the case, you have to have another mechanism.
I see what you're
So
saying.
the states would have to control the taxation that gets sent to the federal government. That's the only way I can see where you can get around that, to where they can't hold your citizens' own tax dollars hostage.
Yeah, I like, I like the idea too. I guess I like our federal system, how we have sort of two major governments. So when I'm reading, those two planks that I just read, I'm hearing that you'll stand up to the federal government if you don't agree with them. And that's another thing, it's principled, you should, as a Colorado senator, you should stand up to the federal government. But I feel like, again, what do you think about ICE? I heard that Kirk Taylor and ICE is working together, whereas I had heard at first he was resistant to it. But now the brutal tactics of ICE is, I don't know, I guess I was just frustrated that the sheriff, because the sheriff could...
Sheriff Richard Mack wrote a great book called Sheriff First, and it's the principle that the sheriff is the only elected law enforcement official in the land. Within his county, any county in the United States, not just Colorado,
right.
That a sheriff, any state officer coming in, any federal officer coming in, they first must get the permission of the local sheriff before they can execute any law enforcement activities. Because that sheriff is beholden to the people because he's directly elected. They're not. They're appointed. So there's several layers removed from any accountability directly to the people. Whereas the sheriff is not, and it's much more local, so it's much easier to remove a tyrannical sheriff, for instance. So I don't know if you've ever heard of Sheriff Brad Rogers in Elkhart County, Indiana.
Mm-mm.
But this guy was awesome. He had a Amish raw milk farmer in his county. Elkhart County sits right on the border with Michigan. And he's Amish, so he didn't keep records. The people came and they wanted to buy raw milk. He didn't ask any questions. He gave them milk, they gave them their money, and he lived his life. Well, one day, I think it was, I don't know if it was FBI, if it was FDA, I think it was FDA agents, came knocking on his door and wanted to inspect his farm. And he says, I don't understand. And he said, well, you've been selling raw milk, and now that it's the people that you sold to are crossing the state line into Michigan, now federal's there. And so we would like to see all your tax receipts, all your records, and everything like that. He goes, I'm Amish. I don't keep any records of that. And by the way, even if I did, I probably wouldn't show them to you because I don't think you have any standing here. Anyway, they kept on harassing him, and so he goes to Sheriff Rogers. And he says, hey, I'm really getting tired of these federal officers come knocking on my door and harassing me. Is there anything we can do? So Sheriff Rogers came to his house, and they sat down at his kitchen table. He says, well, are you willing to open up a can of worms? And the guy said, what do you suggest? He said, well, here's what we can do. And the guy agreed to it, and what Sheriff Rogers did is he wrote a letter to the Department of Justice saying, I understand that your agents are coming into one of my citizens' property and harassing them. And if you do that again without a warrant from one of my county judges, I will throw you in my county jail, or I will escort you out of the county.
Nice.
What sparked this was the farmer was called to, he was actually called to appear before a grand jury in Michigan for this supposed crime. And so a week later, after he sent that letter, the farmer got a letter saying that the summons had been canceled. And that was, I believe that was 2012. And so it just shows that a sheriff's willing to stick up for his citizens can back down the federal government.
Yeah, that's it's the first principles. Montesquieu, the founders had quoted Montesquieu a lot in the anti-federalist papers, and
so you read those? That's awesome. That's great.
thank you. The one of the biggest, my favorite quote of all time of Montesquieu is where he's talking about how if you have an extensive republic, and I want to talk to you about that actually in a